Hi everyone, thank you for taking the time to view my Prezi presentation. Basically from the research assignment, we had to write a 10-page research paper based on any topic that really interests us. And I chose to choose a topic on childhood obesity because I do have a personal connection with it. I've always been struggling with childhood obesity ever since I was a toddler. So throughout my childhood life and into my young adult life, I've kind of struggled with it. But this whole topic is not going to be how I struggle with it. It's pretty much going to be on the causes of it. Um, Many people tend to believe that parents are solely responsible for the increasing rates of childhood obesity, but I don't believe that's the case. There's different factors of life that kind of contribute to the epidemic, and people seem to be blinded by the fact that there's other aspects, there's other causes that do contribute to this epidemic. They don't solely have to be based on their home environment. It can be influences from the public sector. It can be influences from the private sector. Every aspect of the child's life contributes to whether their overall being of whether they live a healthy lifestyle or whether they become obese. It's all based on their situation and their different influences outside of home as well. So basically, if you have the chance to go through my Prezi presentation, I do have some quotes listed for you. Basically, those are quotes. Basically, it's concrete, evidence that I did do the research, and there is proof of what I'll be explaining for the next 10 minutes. Evidence on any subtopic that we'll be talking about. So if you have the time after the video, you can look at it and you can compare whether it's relevant or irrelevant. It's really based on your opinion. So my thesis statement kind of concludes the fact that parents are not solely responsible for the increasing rate of the epidemic of childhood obesity, because the causes of childhood obesity does not lie on one foundation, which it would be viewed as the parents, but in many foundations that condense themselves into one huge cause of the epidemic. That depends on the sociological environment of the child. So what I'll be going through on the topics would be how home environment affects childhood obesity, how the public sector affects childhood obesity, and how the private sector finally affects childhood obesity. First, let's talk about how the home environment affects childhood obesity. The home environment, what I'm talking about, the home environment is not only the parents, but their surroundings in home, the influences of parents. So we basically, the first hot topic on home environment will be on fetal development. With people believing that parents are solely responsible for this epidemic, scientists have to wonder whether this is true or not. And they found that there is a gene that does affect the proportion of body fat mass for a child found in obese children. And basically what they found is that this gene affects their overall build, whether you can be a small build, a medium build, or a large build. I would consider myself as a large built person. So basically this gene does affect whether you do have a lot more body fat mass or a little bit. It does affect that. And the cause of this is the malnutrition between the mother and the fetus during fetal development. This plays a factor, as well as it does not only affect whether this child is born with that gene, but it affects it can affect their psychological abilities. It can affect damage their psychological abilities. And they found that this gene is more prone to be existent to children who are born to developing countries than developed countries, on the fact that mothers who are living in developing countries don't nurture themselves as well. So they don't provide the nutrients necessary for a fetus to develop properly. And even though these children will probably grow up, hungry throughout their developing lives, even though they probably will starve at one point in their lives, they're more prone to childhood obesity because they have this gene that causes them to develop more, body fat cells. Next would be on basically on this whole topic of home environment will be the change in family life. We can all agree that family life has changed throughout the decades in the American history. It's not like the 1960s when families of fours are living together. We now live in an environment, in a culture where many families are the single parent and then the children. We don't have both the mom or the dad anymore. It's totally different. Not only basically on the fact of family, but as well as the fact that a lot of more people are working a lot more hours. We live a more stressful life, even though we do have technology in within our fingertips, within our hands, to make our lives more efficient. They do play a major role on on the family life. Most parents are working about 80 hours a week, so they barely have time to prepare a meal for the family. And many family members, they choose television as their babysitter for their children because they are just so busy. They don't have the time to spend time with their children anymore. So these children are more prone to snack because the parents are not unsure or they don't even prepare a meal for the children. So these children are unsure of a regular meal time. So then to curb their hunger, they decide to snack, just to curb their hunger. And then with parents influencing television, viewing, these children are more prone to snacking, and it's not only based on the family life, but advertisement, which I will discuss later on. Um, Studies show that about 25% of calories consumed by children in America are from snacking, while only 2% of calories consumed from Chinese children are from snacking. And the reason is because the whole aspect of family is so much different from the American culture to the Chinese culture. Chinese people, they really respect the whole meaning or the whole value of family. And here in America, our kind of family views have changed significantly, based on the fact that our culture has changed significantly. Um, Basically, our whole change in family life, I mean, have really contributed to childhood obesity due to the fact that we're no longer spending more time together. Children and families, they spend less time eating together at the family table. Um, Children are just they're isolated. They don't have that connection with family that past generations had. Our culture is so different. I think that change in family life plays a contributing role to the increasing epidemic of childhood obesity. The next factor would have to be whether whether or not um, the public sector does play. I mean, whether they play a role in it. It's really based on many opinions, but I do believe that the public sector does play a contributing role to the increasing rate of childhood obesity because for the first reasons, the lack of smart urban design. Now, I mean, ever since World War II, our American economy has been really focused on designing communities based in suburbia. So if you guys don't know what suburbia is, it's what we live now. We live in these residential intact homes where they're pretty isolated from the cities, but still part of the metropolitan area of cities. They basically call it like sleeping communities. They have sidewalks, homes, and then pretty much homes are all the same. And then the cities were probably about 35 minutes away. So basically, our whole focus on suburbia, has influenced urban design. But when city planners have planned urban design, they don't plan with the intention of young children or young adults. They plan it with with the intention of making profit and with the intention of making money. Luckily, here in California, we don't have that issue. We can go outside. There's sidewalks, there's parks, there's recreational areas. We do have that option to live a healthy lifestyle. Thankfully, we do live in in an area where they do offer us those services. However, we should not only look at our perspective on this issue, but look at other people's perspective that live in other states in the country. Many of states outside of California do not follow like the same layout that suburbia exists in California. Many of those suburban areas do not have sidewalks, do not have, they do not have walking trails. They don't have designated lanes for bicycles like we do. Many of these, suburban communities don't even have parks or don't even offer the same services that we do, because their intention in creating a community is an intention of making profit, as I explained earlier. Studies have shown that these city planners want to design more residential and commercial areas because these areas will bring more profit, more revenue into their city than if they were to create parks or recreation and other recreational areas. Um, but I mean, I think that just by having that mentality of creating a community is a disadvantage towards children, because without having the intention of implying children into the designs of cities, we're influencing our children to live indoors, to live a lifestyle that's basically like indoors, stay indoors, live and breathe inside indoors, and not enjoy what's outside. So these children are taking away their opportunities to walk, to go to the park, or to go to any recreational area that could be a physical and social opportunity for them to live a healthier lifestyle. And I think this is one of the ways on how the public sector contributes to childhood obesity. Probably another reason would be the federal school lunch program. The federal school lunch program was designed in 1946 to provide all low-income families with, the students with a decent meal, at least 2 decent meals during the school day. And this has good intentions to provide foods to these low-income students, a nutritional meal, but with the corruption or misuse of these funds by the public schools, many public schools are choosing to go with a food corporation and purchase unhealthy foods for these children at a lower cost. I think that for as taxpayers, we pay for this federal school lunch program, and by having these schools not offering these children these nutritional meals, they're not only influencing children to eat unhealthy meal, but encouraging our students to have like unhealthy dietary habits. And for a public institution, especially an educational institution, to influence that kind of unhealthy dietary habit, it's really, really depressing. Even though education, maybe they view education as just mathematics or language, they should be influencing the education of living a healthy lifestyle, but they choose not to because they want to spend less on these children who deserve to have an opportunity to live a healthy lifestyle and have a decent nutritional meal. Lastly, public sectors do influence childhood obesity due to the lack of regulation on subsidized food options. The federal government subsidizes the production costs of many food corporations in order for them to keep their demand at a stable rate and to prevent shortages, basically, because production is increasing every day, and especially with the employment minimum wage for the employments are increasing. Many of these corporations are letting go many of their employees just to save money, but these government officials are offering these corporations an opportunity to save money, to continue offering their society the stable demand that we need. However, these corporations are taking advantage of these subsidized options, and they're increasing the food prices off these off these off these regular families who everyday food prices increasing and they're not able to afford it. And for them to be getting help from the government, they should be always for the people. That's using taxpayer money, and everything that is used from taxpayer money should be used for the good of everyone, whether they're higher income or lower income. I mean, research does show that higher income people are, their chances of their children being obese is pretty low compared to lower income, and the fact is because the natural food options for them are a lot more expensive for low income people, and I believe that these food corporations should offer their food options at a lower price, even though they might not make as much profit from their I mean from this practice as